I never thought much about the quiet moments in life, the ones where everything feels settled, predictable, safe. Those were the moments I used to cherish the most. But now, looking back, I realize those moments only existed to be shattered. Because the night he appeared at my door, everything changed. It was late. Too late for visitors. The soft glow of the living room lamp cast long shadows across the walls, and I was lost in the routine of another uneventful evening. A book lay open in my lap, my fingers lazily tracing the edges of the pages. The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of the old wooden floor beneath my feet when I shifted. Then came the knock. Soft at first. Hesitant. But it was enough to send a shiver up my spine. I frowned, glancing at the clock. Nearly midnight. A second knock followed. Stronger this time. More urgent. My breath caught. Who would be knocking at this hour? I hesitated before rising to my feet, my heart thudding a little too fast against my ribs. With careful steps, I approached the door, peering through the peephole. A man stood on my porch. Tall, dark-haired, unfamiliar. I didn't move at first, uncertainty creeping over me. He wasn't dressed like a threat, just a simple jacket and jeans, his shoulders slightly hunched against the cool night air. But there was something in the way he stood, something unreadable in his posture that made me hesitate. Then, as if sensing my presence, he knocked again. Please. I just need a minute. His voice was deep, quiet, edged with something I couldn't quite name. Desperation? Urgency? I swallowed, glancing over my shoulder at the empty house behind me. I should ignore him. I should walk away. But I didn't. Instead, against every ounce of logic, I unlatched the door and cracked it open just slightly. A mistake. The moment our eyes met, something shifted. He wasn't just looking at me, he was searching. His gaze flickered over my face, his expression unreadable. Up close, he looked tired. Not just physically, but in a way that sat deep in his bones. Like he had been carrying something heavy for far too long. I'm sorry for bothering you so late. His voice was smoother now, more controlled, but I could still hear the tension beneath it. I tightened my grip on the door, not fully opening it. Who are you? He hesitated. A pause that stretched just a second too long. That's complicated. A chill ran through me. Everything about this was wrong. A stranger, showing up at my house in the middle of the night, unwilling to say who he was? I think you should go. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. I know how this looks. But I promise I'm not here to hurt you. I didn't move. I didn't blink. Then, in a quieter voice, I just need to talk to you. Something about the way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. Not in fear, but in something else. Something I couldn't name. I hesitated. Then, finally, 5 minutes. I stepped back, just enough for him to enter. Another mistake. As soon as he stepped inside, the air in the room changed. It was almost imperceptible, but I felt it. A shift. A charge. Like something irreversible had just happened. He stood just inside the doorway, watching me carefully, as if waiting for me to change my mind. Thank you. I closed the door behind him, my pulse quickening. Start talking. He nodded, exhaling slowly. You don't know me, but I know you. The words sent a bolt of cold down my spine. I forced myself to stay still, to keep my expression neutral. Excuse me? I know how that sounds, but it's the truth. He took a step forward, his eyes locked onto mine, and in that moment I knew. This was only the beginning. I stood frozen, his words hanging in the air between us like a thick fog. You don't know me, but I know you. A chill ran through me, my fingers tightening around the fabric of my sweater. The air in the room had changed, heavy, charged, like something was on the verge of unfolding, something I wasn't prepared for. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. That's not an answer. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair, as if struggling to find the right words. I know, but it's the truth. Every instinct inside me screamed at me to tell him to leave, to get out, to shut the door on whatever this was before it could go any further. But something in his eyes stopped me. He wasn't lying. and that terrified me even more. I folded my arms across my chest and attempted to steady myself. Then explain. Now. He hesitated, his jaw tightening. Then, finally, he spoke. I've been looking for you for a long time. The room suddenly felt smaller. I shook my head. That doesn't make sense. I know, but just listen. His voice was quiet, deliberate. He wasn't pleading, but there was a weight to his words, something that told me he wasn't going to let this go. I didn't come here to scare you, but I had to see you. I had to know if you were real. My stomach twisted. What are you talking about? He exhaled slowly. I know things about you. Things I shouldn't know. A cold shiver ran down my spine. My hands trembled at my sides, but I forced myself to keep my expression neutral. Like what? He hesitated, searching my face as if trying to decide how much he should say. Then, carefully, he spoke. Your favorite book is The Night We Vanished. You sleep with the window open, even in the winter. You always take your coffee with too much cream, but you drink it anyway because you don't want to waste it. The breath left my lungs. He kept going, his voice steady but laced with something else, something almost reverent. You hum when you're nervous. You bite your lip when you're thinking too hard. You always double-check the locks before bed, but you've forgotten twice in the past month. I took a step back, my back pressing against the wall. How do you know that? He didn't move. He didn't blink. Because I've seen it. In my dreams. Silence. My heartbeat pounded so loudly in my ears that I could barely hear my own breath. What? I know how it sounds. I know it doesn't make sense. But it's the truth. He took a careful step closer, as if testing the space between us. I've been dreaming about you for years. Before I ever knew you existed. And every detail, every moment, it was always you. My hands clenched into fists. That's impossible. Is it? His voice was quiet now, almost a whisper. I felt like the room was spinning. This was crazy. Completely insane. And yet, the way he was looking at me, the certainty in his voice, it sent a different kind of shiver through me. One I couldn't explain. I forced a breath, trying to find my logic again. You expect me to believe that you've been dreaming about me your whole life? That you knew things about me before we ever met? He didn't hesitate. Yes. I shook my head, my thoughts spiraling. That's not possible. Then tell me how I know. I had no answer. No logical explanation. And that scared me more than anything. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us was thick, charged with something I couldn't name. His gaze never wavered, his breath slow and measured. Then, finally, I found my voice. I think you should leave. A flicker of something passed through his eyes, disappointment, resignation, but he nodded. If that's what you want. He took a slow step back, giving me space. I exhaled sharply, my hands still trembling at my sides. Don't come here again. He hesitated. Then, I don't think this is the last time we'll see each other. His voice was steady, filled with something I couldn't place. I turned away before I could see the look in his eyes. I couldn't handle it. A moment later, the door opened, then clicked shut. And just like that, he was gone. But the moment didn't leave with him. I stood in the middle of my living room, my entire body buzzing with something I didn't understand. The air still felt heavy, the space where he had stood still charged with something electric, something lingering. I should have been relieved. I should have locked the door behind him and pushed the entire night out of my mind. But I couldn't. Because deep down, no matter how much I tried to deny it, one thing was clear. This wasn't over. And I wasn't sure if I wanted it to be.